Welcome to Secure Money Mindset, the ultimate podcast for financial planning tips and strategies. Our episodes are designed to be concise and to the point, lasting no more than 30 minutes. Each episode features seasoned advisors from Secure Planning Group or an outside financial specialist discussing crucial issues and providing actions to consider when addressing your top financial concerns. We value honesty and transparency, meaning we present both the good and the bad news in a clear and concise manner. Our goal is to provide you with reliable insights and practical guidance. Be sure to hit the follow button to stay up to date with our latest episodes. For more information, please visit our website at securepg.net. Let's dive into this week's episode of Secure Money Mindset.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of the Secure Money Mindset podcast. I'm Nate Borrmann. I'm a financial advisor here at Secure Planning Group. And with me today, we have Adam Soloff. He is a certified financial planner in our office. So today we wanted to talk about the sandwich generation. Adam, do you want to give us a brief synopsis of what the sandwich generation is?
Sure. So sandwich generation, if your parents are roughly 65 years old or older, and if you have kids 18 or younger, and you're in the middle of that bracket, you're the meat of the sandwich, I would say. Where your parents are the top layer of bread, and your kids are the bottom layer of bread. And that's what they call these days the sandwich generation.
Yeah, so today we're going to dig into a little bit more of who this might be, as well as some different strategies, as well as things to think about if this might pertain to you, or if you know someone that this might pertain to. So, Adam, what do you think would be something that people who are in this situation should be considering?
Well, first things first, before looking at your parents or considering anything for the kids, for college, or what have you, first things first is to make sure that you're covering yourself. So, we're big believers in putting together the plan and a financial plan. So, sitting down with a professional and having them gather information on the income, expenses, assets, liabilities, and seeing where you are first makes the most sense. From there, as far as practically what does it make sense to, where should you put your efforts in the beginning? I would normally say put your efforts towards your own retirement. One of the old adages is you can borrow for college, you can't borrow for retirement.
Yep.
So the idea would be to make sure that your retirement plan is set up. You're maximizing whether it's a 401k, 403b, IRA, what have you, that you have that established and already being funded. And then you can start looking at other aspects for your children and at the same time for your parents as well.
Yeah. So then how would you go about establishing a budget or some boundaries, or what would you say to somebody who's in that situation? They say, hey, Adam, I am maxing out my 401k, but my mom doesn't have any money. Like, what should I do?
Well, I would say first things first, mom doesn't have any money. Okay, that's fine. It's a matter of sitting down with mom and making sure that you have a total understanding of her entire situation. Oftentimes we run into this where you have, the parents, the older generation, they're trying to get by doing things the way, for themselves, not really necessarily having shared the information with their kids. And so one of the first steps in this process is really making sure that you have full disclosure from your parents on exactly where their money is, where their pensions, their social security amounts, what their expenses are. Hopefully they have no liabilities, but if they do, what their liabilities are. Long-term care, the long-term care insurance, hopefully if that's in place.
Yeah.
These are some important aspects to make sure that you're kind of wrapping your head around your parents' situation.
Yeah, and how would you typically go about asking those questions too? Because we see with a lot of clients who are part of that generation, it might be harder for them to speak about those things just because culturally they might not have done them, or it's just not comfortable for them to do them. So how would you suggest someone would approach a parent who might be a little bit more tight-lipped about?
It is hard. It can be hard. And one of the ways that we've seen success is by us acting as sort of an intermediary or facilitator, where, non-confrontationally talking to your parents, saying, hey, I just want you to come to a meeting and, to meet my financial advisor, my financial planner, or your team, and that's it. Just, come to that meeting to get an understanding of kind of how they operate and how they're helping me. And during something like that, it's a way to increase the comfort level of the parent.
Yeah.
So then the parent starts to share information or maybe put together a plan themselves.
Yeah, that's great. So talking about the parents a little bit as far as kids go. So say we start to get a good handle on where mom and dad are at. What do you start doing for the kids then? Like, it's a tough spot to be in. Like, what do you start doing for the kids then?
Well, for kids, there's college savings, right? There's education, certainly. We make it a point to try to educate the kids as soon as they're of age. When it comes to putting together a plan for the kids, you say, a lot of it begins with saving money for college.
Yeah.
And so we're big believers in using 529 plans where the money goes in, and certain states get a state tax break for the money that's going in.
Yep.
Comes out completely tax-free for retirement or for college purposes. And so once you're making sure that your retirement is being funded properly,
yep,
and that your savings is what it needs to be, of adequate savings, and your parents are where they need to be, now it's okay to begin, start allocating some funds towards the 529 for the kids for college.
Is that always going to be the order of operations? Obviously, we can't speak in absolutes because we're speaking very hypothetically here. But would you say that's typically the normal way you'd go about doing it? You'd go retirement assets. Are your parents okay then take care of like kids' college funding? Are there any caveats to that?
Sure. I mean, it's certainly not the global answer to every situation. What are some of the things that we haven't yet talked about are proper coverage, insurance coverages, right? That's something that we haven't talked about yet that I think is an important component for all three categories, right?
Yeah.
Certainly, making sure you're properly covered life insurance wise for yourselves.
Yeah.
Disability as well. Possibly long-term care insurance for yourself as well.
Yeah.
And then in your parents' situation, taking a look at their coverages and making sure that their coverages are adequate, making sure they're not paying for insurance that they don't necessarily need anymore.
Yep.
And then, so no, there's no one size fits all that here's the exact order of operations. But generally speaking, the way you weighed it out, it would be generally the way I would sort of look at things from most situations.
I think that's really good that you brought up insurance too, because a lot of the conversations that I feel like I end up having are people that are saying, I don't want to burden my kids like I'm currently being burdened. Like they don't want to have this sandwich generation, then another sandwich generation 20 or 30 years from now too. So making sure that life insurance, disability insurance, and long-term care coverages are what they need to be. I think that's also very important.
Definitely.
Let's keep taking this further on the parent side. What if they really don't have money? What type of planning can start to be done? Or what if they're in a long-term care nursing home? Like what are some of the things that can be done, people they can talk to? What does that look like?
Right. So there's programs, there's certain government-funded programs through Medicaid that should certainly be explored, because if the parents really are if they don't have much money, if their asset levels are low, especially if they need care, if they're at the point where they're starting to need care, there are certain rules around this that they're able to get funding through Medicaid, through certain government programs.
Yeah.
That would be the first avenue that you would look into.
And how would you see this like emotionally for people? Like they're dealing with their parents, they're dealing with their kids. Like how have you seen people start to navigate these types of things on top of the finances?
I mean, it's difficult. I would say the best way to navigate these things is by having somebody working, side by side with somebody who knows what they're doing, with a financial professional. Yeah. Somebody who has experience putting together and really making the core of the financial plan.
Yeah.
Right. So at the end of it, the financial plan will represent, it will primarily represent you as the person handling the assets or overseeing the assets for parents and for the children. But it could also take into account certain things for the children.
Yeah,
certainly. And for the parents as well, potentially, if the parents are in a situation where they don't have money and they need, if they need additional funding, that could be included as some of the expenses within the plan.
And you would say that sort of transparency and access to all that information, that's typically going to be very helpful, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, it would be very extremely helpful. And just to have somebody there by your side to kind of hold your hand and guide you through the process is going to be invaluable.
Yeah, because like avoiding those pitfalls. Like I was just on another meeting talking about same thing. Like you can take out loans for college, you can't take out loans for your retirement. So making sure that people aren't falling into pitfalls or sort of things like that. So when they look back, they can say, "I navigated this the best I could."
Yeah, I mean the two things to watch out for, two things that we always like to say that could really get in the way of retirement would be a health issue and a declining stock market.
Yeah.
Right. So if you are properly invested, properly allocated, so that you and properly insured,
Yeah.
that's what's going to help you sort of navigate and hopefully protect against, like I said, the health issue or the declining stock market.
Of course. So you spoke about the importance of talking to a financial planner. Who are some other professionals that these people should be talking to make sure they have a well-rounded plan?
Great question. So there's the financial planner who's normally the quarterback of the situation. You have attorneys, specifically an estate attorney, to make sure that the estate documents, whether it's the will, the living will with advanced directives, durable power of attorney, making sure that these documents are up to date with everyone's wishes. If there was any trust documents in place, again, making sure that these documents are up to date. The having the accountant involved, the CPA, whether it be for the purposes of just making sure that the parents' tax situation is where it should be and making sure that everything is being taken into account there.
Yeah.
For insurance and certainly for Medicare supplemental insurance, these are some of the various professionals that we would normally recommend getting involved in making sure that, again, everything about the plan is buttoned up for every generation, not just for the parent generation, but for each generation.
Yeah,
it makes a lot of sense.
And also, too, that everybody listening to this should be looking to update their documents. I mean, some of these people might have had their legal documents updated 20 years ago. So taking the time to talk to an attorney who's an expert in that area and making sure everything's up to date as well as it's on file with your investment accounts, with your bank, wherever it needs to be on file, like making sure you're checking a lot of those boxes to make sure that if you do need to act on behalf of somebody else, but a lot of this is just you're trying to not compound issues. Like there are going to be issues that come, but you're trying to not compound those by, hey, I need to do something for my parent, and then you can't do it, so then you have to take more time to go get those documents done or whatever it is.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, the idea of compounding issues is a real thing. And so if you can kind of get the bud in the beginning by just making sure that you are properly making sure that everything is updated there it should be, that's a good way to resolve problems down the line.
And then one other thing I wanted to touch on today, what about boundaries with this situation? I know when you start to talk about your parents' finances and your finances and the needs going on there, how should someone start to go about setting boundaries? Because money is such an emotional thing, and when it's with somebody you love, whether it's your kid's college or your parents' health, how should someone navigate that?
It can be hard. I mean, hopefully, if everybody's gotten to the point where they are able to have that open, honest relationship, then the idea of boundaries is not as important.
Yeah.
But there's plenty of situations where, especially in the older generation, they don't want to necessarily, just open up the floodgates and open up all their information.
Yeah.
And so it's a matter of figuring out just the nuances of how to navigate those boundaries to make sure that you know the information, and you know enough to be able to make sure you're steering them in the right direction.
That's great.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thanks for sharing all of that. I mean, it's really important to sit down and lay everything out together and have a clear picture of your priorities too, and making sure that you have goals set and boundaries set, as we would say for any person's financial plan. Goals are really what drives everything. So making sure that your goals are properly prioritized to make sure that you are taking care of your loved ones well.
Yeah.
Was there anything else that you wanted to add what we talked about today?
I would say no, every situation is different,
Of course.
right? And so certain situations, there could be situations with special needs, right? Where if you have a child with a special need, and navigating that can make it additionally that much more complex.
Of course.
So I just think it really bolsters the recommendation to have someone who really is familiar with with financial planning to the degree that if there is a special need, that could be taken into account as well. I would say just having someone that you trust, a financial planner that you trust, that can really just sit down, put together the plan, make sure it's tight, make sure it's has all the information up to date and accurate. I would say that's probably the best way to go.
Awesome. That's great. Thanks again for listening this week. Stay tuned for more episodes. You can catch us on Spotify and YouTube. On behalf of Adam Soloff and myself, we thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the Secure Money Mindset Podcast.
Take care.